Welcome, everybody, and thank you for making the time to speak to us and listen to us. So I'm going to do a quick introduction because I don't know, maybe I speak faster than the rest, but anyway, first group is going to be Vivian van Laarhoven and Lieve van Cutsem. I hope I said it correctly, by the way. They're from the University College Leuven, Limburg, so based in Belgium. Lieve is a lecturer at UCLL of the Bachelor and Graduate Welfare Program, and her focus is on social readaptation sciences. I think I said it okay. She enjoys experimental teaching and setting out of the box projects with students. She currently works on a VR experience about people with an intellectual disability, and her passion is advocating for vulnerable people in society, where her aim is to share this passion with her students. And her teaching style is often said to be authentic, passionate, and enthusiastic. And then together with her will be Vivian, and she's based in Belgium, based as an expert in audiovisual learning technologies. She currently works also at the UCLL and advises staff and lecturers about the use of different types of media in education. And her main interests are educational videos, podcasting, and extended reality. She also is a member of the Lerend Netwerk XR, an initiative by the Flemish government to stimulate the use of XR in secondary schools. And although her official job title is expert in audiovisual learning technologies, she prefers to call herself an enthusiastic experimentalist of new media. Okay, great. I think it's time for you to start the show.
Yes, my microphone is on. First of all, Monica, thank you for the introduction. I don't have to do it anymore, so that's easy. I will start to share my PowerPoint. One moment.
Oh, and while it's starting up, just your topic will be on creating impact with low-end VR, in case the viewers wonder. Yes.
Yes, I'm going to talk a bit about creating high-end impact with low-end VR. Why such a name or why such a title? Well, me and Lieve, we work at the UCLL in Belgium, and it's a university college. How did it start? Well, in 2021, we started with investigating the needs for VR at UCLL. I formerly worked especially around podcasting, about creating educational videos. And in 2021, my bosses asked me, well, can you do some research in school, but also external research about XR in education? Is it the future or is it not? Should we invest in XR or not? Well, in 2021, everything started. And in 2022, well, of course, the answer on the question on should we invest in XR, is it a future for XR? The answer was yes. By 2022, we started organizing XR playgrounds for ourselves, because I was a media advisor. I worked around podcasts, I worked with video, but I didn't work with XR before. So we started organizing XR playgrounds for me, but also for my colleagues. And after the playgrounds, we started to give sessions in the UCLL to all the lecturers to inspire them, but not only to the lecturers, also the policy makers. Well, that resulted in one interactive 360 video about suicide prevention. And it also resulted in one 3D VR application for practicing a tracheotomy. But it also resulted in a lot of early adapters who wanted to explore VR, but didn't have the skills or the budget to hire people with skills. So we got a bit of a problem there. The two projects about an interactive 360 video on suicide prevention and a tracheotomy, they were partly externally funded. And because we have a lot of early adapters and not a lot of money, we had to come up with a solution. Well, searching for a solution, we asked ourselves a couple of questions. The first question was, okay, we know what we don't have, that's budget, or that's a lot of expertise in XR, but what do we have? Well, First of all, we have a very enthusiastic group of early adapters. Secondly, we have an AV, an audiovisual specialist, who knows how to film in 360. We also have a team of XR researchers who don't know how to create an XR experience, but who do know how to create a didactical impact with XR. So more the theoretical and the literature expertise is available in our institution. And we also have a team of ICTO members, and ICTO is a name in the UCLL for people who work around ICT and education. And those ICTO members, they are able to assist people to create XR. Well, the second question we asked ourselves is, what is the key element for creating meaningful VR experiences in education? Well, the answer was exactly the same as with creating high-end VR. And the main, the most powerful feature of VR, that's immersion. And immersion, well, that's a nice term, but what's truly important is the telepresence, that people are really experiencing another situation as if they were really there. So it's learning by experience. And by learning by experience and by creating telepresence, there are very big chances to create empathy by the students. Well, in 2022 and 2021, we did a lot of workshops and sessions around VR. And one of the people who came to me and who was attending such a session was Lieve. And Lieve heard about it, about the possibilities for VR, and she got very interested. So what we came up with was a day in the life of people with an intellectual disability. Lieve is going to talk more about it. But the most important aspects why Lieve thought it was a very interesting topic to work with low-end VR is that it is learning by experience and creating empathy. And now I want to give the word to my colleague, Lieve.
Thank you, Vivian. I want to apologize in advance for my English. It's not great. This meeting is way out of my comfort zone, and I haven't prepared the presentation. And I think also that I'm the old one in the group. But nevertheless, as Vivian already told, we are developing an educational package in collaborating with students. The centerpiece is the 360 VR video that allows viewers to step into the daily life of someone with both intellectual and physical disabilities. I got the idea of working with VR in education through my own experiences with VR in cultural life, as at the immersive Van Gogh, and the Ghent Mystic Lamp, and so on. The impact of what you see, the experience through VR or AR, is clearly much stronger than when you just look or listen to something. With the 360 VR, we want to give insight into the lives of people with intellectual and physical disabilities, and we want to increase empathy towards those people and make students think about what they can change as citizens and as future professionals. Initially, we are developing the experience for graduate students in welfare, but later, Vivian and I, we hope to make it available to a wider audience like students in high schools. As a lecturer, I like to use 360 VR to intensify the experience for the students. Being telepresent ensures you're both mentally and physically present in that virtual world and will act accordingly. That is something I think you can achieve less by watching a documentary or by talking to an expert by experience. To be clear, it's for me not an either-or story, but an end-end story. After experiencing the VR, we want to exchange with students about how they experienced it, what emotions evoked in them, what they would like to see different, and how they can make change themselves as citizens and as future professionals, and so on. The educational package provides also some theoretical frameworks, for example, to learn the difference between what is a disorder, what is a disability, or what is a handicap. As a lecturer, I also like to develop projects in collaboration with students and not for students. The educational package will be developed with students' social, cultural work, and I'm convinced that practice-based education ensures that students engage in concrete, hand-on work, which motivates them more, I think, and allows them to reflect better afterwards. Students feel personally addressed and can make a substantial contribution to a social team. They also learn to work together and to use their own strengths. There is also the evaluation that I had from my students the past year when we experimented already with the VR. Last but not least, I'm convinced that our education should connect with the students' world of life. And today, that is more than just listening to a lecture or watching a documentary or doing a talk. So that's my story.
Thank you, Lieve, for your perspective. I'm going to add something to it. I will share my presentation again. Well, Lieve talked about the why she thought it was interesting to work with 360 VR with her students. And what were we creating? We are creating a day in the life of people. Her name is Patricia, and she has an intellectual and physical disability. The video is a 360 view, and it's a fly on the wall. First, we thought to make it a point of view film. But with a point of view, you weren't really able to really empathize with Patricia because you didn't saw her. And we thought it was more intense and more that there was more possibility to create empathy when you could see the expressions on Patricia's face. And in order to see the expressions on Patricia's face, well, you had to be a fly on the wall. So we created a 360 view fly on the wall film of Patricia, but we did add the voiceover of Patricia. So during the 360 experience, you hear the voiceover of Patricia telling what she does and what she thinks at the moment. So in that order, we wanted to create maximum empathy with the students. Of course, with some sort of production, there were a lot of collaborations needed, especially Pasform. We did a collaboration with Pasform, and Pasform is a social institution in Belgium. And one of their main goals is to create sensibilization around people who have an intellectual disability. So we work together with them. Also, our contact with Patricia is because of Pasform. We also did a collaboration with Borgenstein, and Borgenstein is the house where Patricia lives. It's a caretaking home for people with a disability. So we obviously had to work with Borgenstein. Also, of course, Patricia and her roommates herself. It's like a live action, but also a little bit of acting involved because we still ask them to behave in a certain way which comes over as realistic. Herefore, we also, of course, the GDPR rules. So that's not very evident and not very easy to make that in order, but it's very important to check with the GDPR compliances. Also, collaboration with the caretaker. The caretaker is not Patricia's real caretaker, but it's an alumna of UCLL. Also, the script, I couldn't write the script by myself because I don't have a clue what a day in the life of a person with an intellectual disability is. So I really had to work with Lieve, Pasvorm, and also Patricia to get their inputs of the scripts. Filming and editing is done by me, an AV specialist, and later on also the ICTO members of our school will assist with filming and editing. And also, but not least, Lieve students, because Lieve students are creating the educational package around the 360 experience. The hardware and software we used, the hardware, it's just very low end. It's the Insta360 X3 cam combined with a Zoom H4, a Lavalier, an iPad, and a Quest 2 to show the video on. The software is the Insta360 Studio Premiere Pro in combination with Adobe Audition. So nothing too complicated. What about the impact? Well, our main goal was to create impact, but it is impact on 3 different levels. First of all, the students. We really wanted to create empathy for Lieve students to really feel how it is to have a mental or intellectual disability. But also by creating a social impact. The educational package will be used in our institution, but our goal is also to share it with institutions like Pasvorm, but also other social institutions, local governances, to help them to create empathy for mental people with intellectual disability. So also social impact is a really big goal with this project. And last but not least, with this low-end VR example, we want to inspire colleagues at the UCLL to really use XR and to show them that it doesn't have to be difficult to make an impact, that it doesn't have to be high-end 3D VR or high-end mixed reality to create a difference. You can also create a difference and create impact by using low-end VR. Well, that's more or less our presentation. If you have any feedback or questions, you can ask a short question now, but you can also send your feedback or questions to our email addresses. And I think Doville will share this PowerPoint presentation with you so you can remember our email addresses later on.
Thank you for your presentation. Yes, the presentation will be shared, and of course we're recording as well, so you can watch it later and then get the links to everything that will be shared today. Does anybody have a question before we move on to the next speaker? No? Just like jump in, because we're not that many. I don't mind if you put your microphone on. No? No takers? Okay, cool. So then I'm going to move on to Dr. Ahmed Yousof, who's joining us from East Stroudsburg University in Pennsylvania, well, the University of Pennsylvania. And he holds a PhD in communication and instructional design, and is experienced in both the US, Canada, and the Middle East, and brings a unique global perspective to his work as an assistant professor of art, media, and instructional design. His research focuses on the effectiveness of computer-mediated and XR instructional approaches that addresses diverse learning needs and creates dynamic, inclusive learning environments. He's also developed and taught courses on VR and professional storytelling, VR in the metaverse, of course, the technologies there are amazing, and instructional design. And one thing you didn't mention is your podcast, which I hope you do share with everybody else, because it's really a nice bite size of 5 minutes that everybody can do. I do it when I iron, so just so you know, it's my little guilty pleasure. Let's catch up on some of the podcasts. Anyway, your topic of discussion is called From Empathy to Alterity, and using VR to promote disability inclusion in higher education. It's your turn. Take it away.
That's great. Thank you so much, Monica, for this wonderful introduction. And actually, I would ask all participants to, like, if you go to the chat box, and you will find like it's a link that starts with app.nearpod. So to be great if you click on it, because the presentation would be like kind of interactive presentation, and I would need your input. And let me share my screen, and then we can start.
Does everybody have the email address? It's right at the top of the chat in case you were still looking for it.
So I also actually shared the presentation, but I mean, like, you will need to, if you want to interact with the presentation, so it would be great if you click on the link and join the presentation. So like, it is more, I would say, like, this is another variation and a different like a different step, but still related to what Vivian and Lieve mentioned, which is like the use of VR in order to understand how actually the other, and let me just say the other for now, by the other, I mean like someone who is different from us. So first of all, let me start with this. If you clicked on the link, you will have an access to this poll. It says, like, have you dealt with a person with ASD? And ASD here means autism spectrum disorder. And it doesn't matter what the age is, like any person with ASD. So just you can click on yes, no, or I'm not sure. And great. So like the majority here, like they dealt with students on the spectrum. And let me, before I start, let me also proceed to another question here. Like, let's say you are going to listen, or like you have a noise going outside and inside the room, but they are coming from 4 different sources. So how long would you be able to tolerate this noise? Like, will you be able to, like, to listen to 4 things, different 4 things at the same time for 1 minute, 5 minutes, an hour, a day? And like the noise are not related. Like I would say, like TV sound, people talking, someone, like some people talking in the street, cars moving around. So let's see. Okay. So the majority would say like they can tolerate this for 5 minutes, but none of you actually chose the 1 day option, like you tolerate it for 1 day. And actually, I wanted to start with this because the choice for representing the experience of students on the spectrum in higher education, it's because they deal with certain challenges. And we are going, like, I'm going to introduce the challenges first that they deal with. So the first thing that we need to know that students on the spectrum, they tolerate noise in a certain way. Like, they have to deal with noise coming from different sources at the same time. But the challenge here, that all the noises that they hear, they come with the same level, the same volume level. And I want to share with you an audio, and this is like a 30-second of a student on the spectrum sitting on the class, and the windows are open. So they now listening to the lecturer. They are listening to the noise coming out from the street. They are listening to noise coming from the hallway. And also they are listening to maybe some discussions going on in the class, like side talks. So these are the 4 things. Let's see how they look like. This is actually a recording from the setting that I have just described. And I'm not sure if when I shared my screen, like I shared the sound, but let's see if you can hear that.
No sound coming out for me, so I think.
Okay, so I
not.
think, yeah, I'm gonna stop share and then share again. Oh yeah, I'm gonna share sound as well. Okay. So now let's hear this for, again, a student sitting in that class.
American familiar with the reservation system, where the Indians were forced onto the reservations. This wasn't officially a governmental policy, and it was seen as very sort of progressive and high-minded at the time. Resolving the Indian problem was the way it was spoken about at the time, the Indian problem. And of course, this Indian problem is not new to us. We've been dealing with Indians and appropriating their land and taking from them what belonged to them since the first English settlers arrived in America. But the plain.
So as you can see, it is noisy. There is like the lecturer in the background, and we have all these things like coming from the street and any other things going on, especially if it's an open classroom. So a student on the spectrum will hear the same thing, like all these things at the same time. And then another poll. How would you feel when people around you cannot understand what you want to say most of the time, and just most of the time, like not just 1 or 3 times, like every time you speak to a person, that person cannot understand you? Would you feel happy, disappointed, sad, or it doesn't matter? And I would say that the majority would say disappointed. And that's definitely what a student on the spectrum would feel when they talk to people. I mean, like there is a disconnect between the brain and mouth. And this is something also that I'm going to talk about when I explain the experience using the VR, how to represent this. But what you need to know about like students on the spectrum or someone on the spectrum, that there is a disconnect between their brain and their mouth. So if you want to speak, your brain will send a signal to your mouth will talk based on that signal. What happens to students on the spectrum is that when you ask them a question and you're expecting an answer, their brain will send a signal to their mouth in order to say the answer. But because of this neurological disconnect, they will not say the answer, but they think that they told you the answer. So when you repeat the question again, they would ask you, like they would respond in a very like surprised face, like as if they are saying, I have already answered you. Why are you asking me again? But what they don't know, that the signal stopped at their mouth, so they did not share the answer. So that's why you're asking them again. So sometimes people would label them as being rude or as being like you're not able to understand what I am talking about. So this is also another thing for a student on the spectrum. And a third thing, and your input would be great. If you click on that image, just like let me know, like what is the first thing that captured your eyes in this image? The stairs, the chairs, the picture of the wall, or nothing specific? The first thing. So if we look at it, like most of the answer would say, like maybe the stairs could be, that's right. Or
if I notice something that are not in the list.
In the picture, right? Like this one.
No, I think you mean in the list of feedback.
Oh, okay. This one. So
I think
can't.
no, because you selected nothing specific. I think that's why your name didn't pop up. I think because mine didn't either. I don't have a dot.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, okay. So it looks like it's not reflecting all the selection. But the point here is like what I want to say from this picture, like a student on the spectrum is not like us. When you like look at any image or any picture, what happens here is that you just survey the entire space. But for a student on the spectrum, what happens is that they are overwhelmed by visual details. So what they do is that they always look at certain things, like what you see here on the picture, they would look at the image on the wall, for example, and they keep staring at it. They are not staring at it because they want to know more information about it or something, but they are staring at it because it's something like a refuge. It is something that they look at it because they don't want to look to the rest of the scene because it's overwhelming. A lot of chairs, so many bottles, so many like the stairs, like all these things. So they just choose a point and then they look at and they ignore the rest. So that's why if you are talking to them and they are not looking at you, the first thing you need to know is, or to do, is to check the setting. If the setting or the environment like is full of things, so they're not looking at you because they just want to look at one thing because they don't want to be overwhelmed by other things. And that's the last thing, which is, would you keep staring at your phone when someone is talking to you in person? Would you do that? And I can see that the majority would say no. And yeah, the majority would say no. And you are right. So the point here is that that's right. But the students on the spectrum, they appear to be unaware when people talk to them. So they keep looking at their iPad or phone or something. But what you don't know is if you kept talking for them and they are looking somewhere else, or they are looking at their phone, and then you ask them a question, like, for example, repeat what I said, or ask them a question about something that you have just mentioned. Surprisingly, they would answer you because they appear that they are unaware, but in fact, no, like they can understand you very well. They can listen to you very well. They are not ignoring you, but it's just like a matter of, again, focusing on one thing and being like, to be like always in their world. So yeah, I'm sorry, like I promise, this is the last thing. Do you prefer to be alone all the time? Not, I mean, like we all prefer to be alone like for some time, right? But all the time, would you prefer to be alone? And I hope, okay, so perfect. So we have, okay, so the majority would say no, unlike a student on the spectrum. So they prefer to be alone all the time, actually. They prefer to be there. And that is, again, because they are overwhelmed by noise. They are overwhelmed by visual stimulus and all these things. So that's why they do not prefer actually to mingle with people, but they are not antisocial. Like they are not antisocial. They are still like, this is how social means for them. So what I want to say here is that for a person on the spectrum, they feel that they are part of the community or the class or whatever, but they feel at the same time that they are not, because they are acting differently. They cannot escape their own world, their world that is focusing on only one thing, and that is their world, and they cannot escape it. If you ask them to do 3 things at the same time, like for example, go to your room and then get me a cup of water and then do your homework, they will feel overwhelmed. Like, oh no, like in my world, you have to give me only one thing to do. And then after I am done, give me the other thing to do. So like they always like in a battle, they want to make sure like people can understand them. And the problem is that their words are always like stuck in their throat. Like there is, remember, this disconnection between their brain and their mouth. And they don't know how to make friends because not all people can actually understand or deal with them. And they're actually, in general, their minds work differently. So the only thing like to understand their daily challenge, and I want to focus on that, like VR would help us understand their daily challenges, not their medical condition, but we want to see like these very small things that they go through, and we need to understand that, and we need to make sure that we are in that state of alterity. And state of alterity here means that you are going to assume the identity of a person on the spectrum, and then what you will need to do is to go through what they experience, but again, not the medical condition, but these very small things that they face every day in the college hallway, in the college buildings, and they are very annoying to them. And that is definitely due to their medical condition. So what happened that I developed a training using the ADDIE model. And the ADDIE model, it is a model or approach in instructional technology that starts with analyzing the entire situation or issue. And then we design a training module. And then after the design, we start the development phase and then implementation. And definitely the evaluation, it takes place at the end, but also we evaluate every stage. When we are done with every stage, we evaluate it. So I will go very quickly over this training module. So using ADDIE model, we started with the analysis, and the analysis included the professional input. But the point with the professional input here, that it tells you what they will feel in general. So in general, what a person on the spectrum will feel like and how they would behave. However, for this model, actually, I interviewed students on the spectrum. And I started actually to ask them to seek their input. What are the things, forget about your medical conditions now, but tell me the things that are very annoying to you. And the things that I displayed in the very beginning, like the noise, like preferring to be alone and all these things. These are the things that they shared with me. And just to tell you, it is very difficult to run an interview with a student on the spectrum because they have something called stream of consciousness. Like when they talk with you, they are not organized. So they can talk to me about their experience, and then in a second they turn into the football game that was on the TV yesterday, and then they come back to the topic, and then they turn into something that their mom or their dad did to them. So that's why to extract these things, it was a little bit it took time actually. So after we analyzed the entire the entire situation, I moved to the design part. And the design part, actually, it is a VR training module following the ADDIE model. And we used 360 video. And here also, I want to borrow what Vivian and Lieve mentioned in their presentation, that it is a 360 video to achieve this idea of empathy, and also for the telepresence or the social presence, and to make sure the person who's taking that training, so they are immersed in this environment. It is scenario based because it's an interactive one, and you achieve the best score in this training module if you manage to think exactly like an ASD student. And for example, if you are in the training, if you are sitting in a room and then you have all these noises coming in, the noise that you couldn't actually tolerate for 30 seconds, right? Some of you maybe, but just the answer will the training will give you the options. What are you going to do in this case? Are you going to put on a headphone? But remember, this might be disrespectful. Or are you going to leave the class? If you said, I'm going to leave the class, that's the wrong answer. A student on the spectrum will not leave the class, but they will put on their headset just to make sure the noise is not that much. And you need to think exactly what a student on the spectrum will do. And that is the way. So we don't want you to understand the experience. Of course, understanding the experience will be great, but this training wants to take you a step further by behaving as a student on the spectrum. And then for the development part, it was a scenario based. So if you chose one option, if you chose to leave the room, so you will go to another scene and then it will show you the consequences. And if you chose to put the headphone, so it will take you to a different level, and that will show you also the consequences. And the I used actually the after we developed the scenario, we used the Insta 360 spherical VR. It's an 8K camera, and it is actually amazing. It's just there are some difficulties and glitches that happen using it, but but it was one of the best options. And also we have actually the script, and the script was something that was developed by me and by other people. So that is the branch or the development. So that is the scenario or the branch tree. And these are the scenario 1 and scenario 2. So you have 2 contexts. And then if you make a decision, so that will take you to a certain outcome. If you take another decision, that will take you to another outcome. And that is the camera that was used. And also, this is actually the snapshots of the script. And the I mean, like the implementation here, that is like the technical feedback regarding like the user interface and the user experience, and also piloting the training module. This is something that's the phase actually that we are starting hopefully next week, which is like piloting the module. And finally, the evaluation here, it includes two things: assessing the effectiveness of the training module in terms of research. We want to see like what research will tell us when we try this training module. Would that make a difference from any other training modules, or is it like it doesn't have that much contribution? This is something that we are going to do. I mean, like hopefully that would be the last step, is to measure the evaluation through research. Now, the last thing that I want to conclude with is why this presentation. Like first of all, like just to introduce this experience, but the most important thing is we are looking for anyone who's interested in the implementation and the evaluation phase. So in other case, like if you try this out, if you try this experience or this training module, and then let us know how it was received and what are the things that we need to take care of in order to actually fix it, and then we have like a final product at the very end. And that is something that's actually, I hope, like one of the links that I'm going to share with Adobe and Media and Learning is you will have like a link to the script that I shared and a template of the scenario based training, and also a link to this PowerPoint, of course, and hopefully a link to part of that training, so you can have have an idea about it. And definitely the PowerPoint will have also my like all the like my email and contact information. So feel free to contact me if you are interested in like the implementation and evaluation phase. Thank you.
Thank you, Ahmed. That was really interesting, and it was nice to put some interaction into some of the polls that you sent us. I was looking at the clock, but it wasn't an option for me. I always look at a clock, so I think you need to add that in there.
Sure.
So one comment that came up now was the ADDIE model, which is apparently not an instructional model, according to Lai. We can get into that into the Q&A, because I think it's a really interesting topic, because I do believe that UX design, UI design, and design thinking in general is something that everybody has access to when they start getting into VR or AR development. And it's hilarious that people think that the money should go into all the tech and all that type of stuff, and it should first be that before you go there. But that's something we can discuss afterwards. There is one question that was in there that was from Linde, and it is from the perspective from the person. Was it a fly on a wall, or was it a POV perspective?
Yeah, it is a POV perspective. And yeah, that's right. And also, I totally agree with Lai. Yes, thank you so much for that. It is. I totally agree with you. And just to be more specific, I mean, like the ADDIE is more, yeah, like an approach or a guiding line thing. And the one that is being used here is Dick and Carey model. And like Dick and Carey model is part of the ADDIE approach. So yeah, I totally agree with you. Definitely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, great. So then we're going to move on to, last but not least, Linde Voorend. Voorend. You're going to have to say it out loud because I can't say it properly, I'm sure. She works Voorend, thanks. She works at the University Library of the Vrije Universiteit Amsterdam and is connected to a Center of Teaching and Learning. She supports educators in finding and using a variety of open educational resources, including extended reality experiences. And in this tech lab, she makes using these XR experiences more accessible by providing advice infrastructure, technical and organizational support. And besides XR, they also do 3D printing of objects for research and educational purposes. So Linde, it's your turn to talk about all the cool projects you're working on there.
Yes, thank you, Monica. I hope you all have some concentration left to listen. I also have some interactive elements in there, so hopefully that helps a bit with keeping the attention. And I will be talking today from the perspective of someone who does a lot of practical, technical, organizational support with XR and implementing it in education. And I will do that through the frame of one of the applications that we developed and are using currently at the VU, which is called Vrije. Plead is pleading in English, and this is an application that facilitates real-time cross-institutional interaction in pleading practice for law students. So it has a lot of different elements, and I will highlight those elements in a minute. And when talking about this XR experience, I don't want to focus solely on this VR experience, what it can add didactically. Of course, that's a part of it, but I also want to look at the importance of successfully integrating XR experiences in education, because from my perspective, it takes a lot more than just saying, okay, I want to use this application, downloading it, and then using it. But we'll dive deeper into that in this presentation. So first, I have a question for you, and that is, what person or roles are involved in your institution when employing an XR experience in a course or program? So who is involved? In what way? And I would like to see your answers in the chat. Or of course, you can also unmute yourself and tell me or tell us. I already see some answers. So yeah, computer support, the teacher support. See if some more additional developers, education technologists. Yeah, so these are all things that roles that I had in mind too. And what I wanted to show you, or what I wanted to achieve by talking about this, is that you are already seeing that a lot of persons can be or should be included in the process of integrating VR or XR experiences. Maarten also says the educator, researcher, XR technician, exactly. Ethics, interesting topic. Yeah, I must admit at the VU we are not yet doing a lot with ethics, but I think in the future that will become more important. Support. So I see a lot of different roles that are included in this when employing an XR experience. Then to come back to, let me see if I can, to come back to Vrije, which is, as I said, an application that we use at the VU, and the different elements that it consists of. So Vrije has been developed for law students who have to practice their pleading for the field, especially if they want to become a lawyer in their later life. And it focuses on different things. So for one, there is a real-time interaction in the VR application. Second, it's cross-institutional. So we work together with different institutes in using the application. And then, as I said, it's for law students with a moment or an experience in which they can practice their pleading in a realistic environment. So why did we develop this? At first, before we developed this app, the students had an exam for which they had to practice by themselves. And then they had the exam or the peak moment in which they had to recite their plead for their educator, teacher, etc. So they learned it by heart, and then they recited it for their teacher in a lecture room that was not close to a realistic courtroom, for example. So they would learn it for one moment, and then after that moment, they would maybe forget about it, or it was not much of a deep learning experience. And then we tried to come up with a solution for this. So we went from this to more dynamic practice with interaction between different students, in which the students give peer feedback to each other and also interact with each other in the VR environment. As I said, in a realistic environment. So it looks like a courtroom where there is an audience watching with a live judge with which you can interact and that is asking you questions. So that was totally different from the way they did that before. And then how did we do that? So this is not the best picture, but it shows on the one hand the student who is pleading with the VR headset, and for extra experience they have the right clothes as well. And then on the other hand, you see in this case the judge who is sitting in front of the green screen and then is live streamed into the VR environment. So the student with the headset sees the judge in the VR environment. And what this provides is a real-time interaction, right? So the judge can ask questions, provide feedback, do a little bit of time management. So then there's this more dynamic and spontaneous interaction between the two. And the person before the green screen doesn't have to be the educator or teacher. So this also changes it up a little bit. And then, as I said, it's cross-institutional. So it's a project that is with the Vrije Universiteit, but also with Utrecht University and Rijksuniversiteit Groningen. And what you can do is the student who is pleading can be at the Vrije Universiteit in Amsterdam. Then the judge can be another student present at the Rijksuniversiteit Groningen, for example, which is live streamed then in the environment. But this judge can be at a totally different location. And then you have students who can be at either one or the two locations, or they can be at home giving feedback. And they have a webcam through which they can see the pleading students. So they have that to base their feedback on. And in this way, there's an interaction between the different institutions and they can work together. Sometimes students from the Rijksuniversiteit Groningen have to practice with being a judge, and then they can facilitate that for the Vrije Universiteit, where the students practice with pleading, for example. So there's this interchange between the different institutions. And then the students are also faced with someone they don't know, being the judge or being the pleader. So it's different from doing it for your own teacher or your own educator. And then in the third part, where the students give feedback, they also learn how to give proper feedback. And most times we do it, the student is able to do their pleading again. So they receive feedback and then they immediately can use that feedback in their pleading. And then the last element that I wanted to highlight is the realistic environment. So as you can see, this is not the video, but this is the oldest courtroom in the Netherlands. It's based in Groningen, with which we also recorded a 360 video. So it's a video loop with a live audience that you see moving. And then you have the judge, which is the live stream, so that it's not included in the video loop. But students have this experience in which they stand in the realistic environment and they are being watched by the audience. So it's totally different than being in a classroom or a lecture hall, standing in front of an educator. So of course, this is also an element that adds to their stress levels, but also preparing them for their future, maybe, where they also have to be in these spots or these locations where they have to do that as well. And we're also offering now complementary.
Linde, we lost you. Or is everybody hearing her?
No, I can't hear either.
Okay, Linde, we lost.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I think my headphones battery died. So, all right, let's go to the next slide. So these are the different elements that of the application. And what I want to emphasize is that we specifically catered these different elements to the learning goals and what the wishes were for this particular course. So these different elements. And then how did we integrate it in a course? Because it's not just, and this is what I really want to emphasize here, it's not just having the application and having students using this application, it's also how it is embedded in the course and the different roles that come into play. So we have the law department, we have me as a technical support, an XR expert, we have the coordinators of the programs, the courses. Yeah, so there are different persons that work together on this. And in this case, of course, you have also the different institutions, which makes it a bit more complex in some ways. And then this app is part really of a broader program. So you can see here, for example, the feedback rubric. It's in Dutch, sorry, so you can't, some of you might not be able to see the content, but it's a feedback rubric that is specifically developed for students. Okay, how can you give feedback on pleading? It's for them to help them. Also elements that they can have in mind when they practice their pleading. Yeah, so the technique is really embedded and something is done complementary to the application or the XR experience. It does not stand on itself, as I say here in the PowerPoint. And this can look like additional exercises or feedback, as I said. What do they have to do after they experienced the XR, the VR? You have to think about time management. How long do we make these sessions? How many students can start at the same time? Who is there to help when a technical problem occurs, but also who manages the headsets, make sure they are updated, tests them beforehand, maybe additional computers or technology, who coordinates which student matches to the other student, what staff is needed, in what kind of space do we do this, how big should it be, the time period, should it be individual work or group work? So these are all elements that come into play when you want to embed your XR experience in education, and some consensus that you might have to find between, okay, what really are our learning goals and how can we cater to that? For example, we have anatomy VR as well. And then we specifically use one headset and then a screen is connected to the headset. So students can work in groups of 3 and they can all work together with the same XR experience instead of giving them 3 different headsets, for example. So it emphasizes more working together, experiencing together instead of doing it by themselves. So you can really think about these factors as, okay, what suits my learning goals best? And then I have a question for you. You can put it in the chat again or unmute yourself. Did you ever encounter situations in which an XR experience did not have the desired outcome in education because it was not correctly integrated? Or what problems did you experience when you wanted to integrate it? And maybe also, if you encountered such a situation, what was the solution? Or yeah, what did you do to solve these problems? Your message now, Maarten. It's something you have to think about a bit more.
Do you, Linde, have any examples from your experience?
Yes, definitely. Pleadvrij, the application that I just mentioned, now it's running very successfully. But at first it was really also a search for example, we had the application and we had the plan, but then with how many students, but then the time management or the how do you say that, like the room reservations was only for an hour, for example, so there was not enough time. Nobody thought about, okay, there are so much students, so we need to have 2 hours or 3 hours. And then there was also coordination with Groningen, who had judges, and we only had students who practiced their pleading. And we didn't really think about, okay, but how are we gonna connect these two together? So that was a big puzzle. And we had to solve that and make a plan for that with all the law departments together to come up with a solution. I see also an answer from Marika. Sometimes learning to work with the glasses and remote control is more time intensive than the content itself. Yeah, definitely. That's also why we have, for now, me as a technical support, because when you have to do that all by yourself as a teacher, it can be really time consuming. And this way we try to make XR a bit more accessible by taking some technical parts out of their hands. Yeah, and doing it as a team and having the different roles. And Maarten saying mainly that the amount of work to create something is quite a lot, meaning that XR experiences are hard to keep updated with the curriculum or create in the first time. Yeah, I can totally see that, definitely also from a perspective, from a developer perspective. And of course, that's also something we encounter also with technique of headsets. When you use one headset for an application, then it almost already changes and you have to use another headset, for example. So these are all things to think about when employing XR. Headset setup. Yeah, so there are some implications when using the XR, I would say, and this is why I'm very happy here at the VU. We have a big team of people who can do it together. We have this technical department that covers these more technical stuff, updating the headsets, keeping them up to date, making sure that they work. And then we have the teaching department who can really think about the embedding of the applications in education. So I would say, if you think about this for yourself or your own institution, think about what people, I think this is at the next slide. Yeah, what people do I need to make this work? Because it can be very successful. We have a lot of successful use cases like pleadvrij, in which we work in teams. So who do you need if you want to use XR in your institution? And for designers and media advice is like, how can we really think about the learning goals of different courses, and can we cater to that for example, with Pleadvrij, we specifically choose the live stream element, for example, because it catered to the learning goals. But maybe if there are different learning goals, you would develop it in a different way. So these are things to think about, and I don't have all the answers, but I think if you collaborate and you work together and you have the different persons and elements and roles together, that it really can create a much deeper learning experience for students than simply a video or a lecture or These are the takeaways, but I think these are for later when you want to read the presentation again. And then there's also a link to to a short information video about Pleadvrij if you want to know more about the project. That was my presentation. I have no clue how long I've been talking. If I
No, you did well. You didn't take as long as Ahmed, so it's okay. No, I'm kidding. No, it was really interesting. Thank you so much. And I'm sure there's some questions, and if there aren't any, I always have a gazillion. So I think maybe we open the floor up. So if there are any questions, just raise your hand or just speak out loud.
Yeah, I have a question for Linde. Like, how much time does it take you with that entire team to get something as complicated as the Pleadvrij set up? Because, you know, you're working with networked systems, having someone in front of a green screen who's then teleported in the entire experience. And if I can believe the photos, everybody looks quite happy. Sorry about that. There's a cat, and he cannot stand a cat. Sorry. So yeah, how much time does it take you to do all this?
I think in the beginning there was a lot of time. We put a lot of time in it, and now we've done it for a few years. So we kind of know the ins and outs. We have a technical team in Groningen. They are specifically they created the whole application, and then we have at the different institutions we have a technical key user, someone who has contact with them, and so it's pretty easy to communicate with each other. And we also, so there's also a set lesson plan available, and a plan for for the execution. So right now we've mostly followed that plan, and we have the setup already here. So everything is already here in the lab. We have the infrastructure ready, and we only use one headset. So we have different sessions, but we only use one headset. So it doesn't take too much time to use 20 headsets at the same time. So that saves a lot of time. Yeah, and mostly 3 or 2 weeks before, I test it out, make sure everything is ready, and then we make the sessions where students can sign up for, so we know who is coming. And then the didactical part, I'll leave it to the law department. Yeah. So right now I think it's okay. It's not too much time. I find it hard to make an estimation of how many hours.
Thank you.
Anybody else have a question? To anybody, doesn't have to be about Pleadvrij. Sally, are you raising your hand?
I am, and I have my hand raised as well in the Zoom, all very carefully. No, it was a question actually to Vivian originally, but I was curious about everybody, because in many cases these are early steps, and I just wondered, Vivian, has that resulted now in more, or has everybody been so put off by the whole experience that they don't want to do anymore, or what's been the reaction in UCLL?
No, in contrary, we just started another project around job interviews in collaboration with the VDAB, and it's an institution who gets people to work in Belgium. And it's a collaboration. They have expertise in job interviews, and we have now a little bit of expertise in 360 video making in VR. So we are planning to do a project around that. And also in the health department, it escalated quickly because they are now installing an immersive room, and we want to hire someone who makes 360 videos full-time. Not full-time, but we hire them solely to make 360 videos. So yeah, it escalated, but in a positive way. So by doing such a easy XR production, we inspired people to work with it, and also we broke the ice, to say it. So it's easier for them. It's less scary to work with it, and especially if they know there's people which they can count on, and it's an AV specialist, but also the entire ICTO team, so the ICT and education staff, who can work with video and editing software.
Great. Was it the same for you, Ahmed? Is it leading to more? Oh, mic's off.
Yeah, I mean, like right now I do consider ourselves like we are in the like the initial phase right now, because we are trying it out, and before we apply like any modifications or anything. And but we actually, other departments and other institutions here in the United States, they are waiting for the results, and then to see like to what extent this can be like taken a step further. So that's why we're very eager actually to collaborate and then test it out with other institutions.
Yeah, and in our case, it was also a bit of leverage for the policymakers, because we asked the policymakers to invest in XR, but they were very withholding and they weren't too eager to invest. But by showing them it was possible, they're also interested in investing more. So the first easy step was definitely needed in our institution.
I'm going to add something as well, because going back to the design thinking and the UX and UI design, there's also analysis, right? You've got analytics, data collectors or whatever you want to call them in a lot of the institutes now because of AI and all that as well. Did you use any of those expertise? I'm thinking specifically, Ahmed, you mentioned that question where we were looking at the image, and mine was staring at the clock, like I said, but then your patient, or well, not patient, but ADHD person was staring at that picture. How did you analyze that? Or is that just based on other research, or did you do that in VR?
I mean, like that's based on other research, like published research, and based on interviews with like doctors and psychiatrists, and they are actually specialized in ASD diagnosis. So that is actually based on their input. And the point, actually, we made sure like not to rely on one study or one person. So actually, we kept doing like this cross-sectional verification. So, and also the entire thing is compared to or verified with students on the spectrum who actually gone through the interview, just to make sure like this capture their experience as well. I also agree with you that analytics is very important, and as Vivian mentioned, like it's to invest or to convince an institution or a place to invest. Like here we have Autism Speaks, that's the biggest institution, and they are really interested in the project, but they cannot actually do anything before we publish our results and then we see how things went.
Good. Yeah, no, I'm just curious, because if you start bringing in people that think that they have no connection to XR, then that becomes interesting for the entire university. That's kind of where I was going for. So use the expertise that you have, just like Vivian and Lieve mentioned in the beginning. See who's available, use them to kind of promote, and then the rest should technically fall into place. Anyway, that's one of my thoughts. Anybody have another question? No, I have one for Linde. Regarding your Vrije project, how did you deal with lag? So you're sitting in 3 different places, and then you have people coming in from different technologies, did that take away from the experience when you have a student being a lawyer or whatever, and then the next person being in another building?
That's a good question. So they kind of meet in a virtual online meeting space, and I have not experienced that took away from the experience. And I think it was already in addition to what they were used to, because they used to just recite their pleading in a classroom for their teacher. And I think the VR experience also looks very realistic. So the first time I experienced it on the headset, I felt like the stress, and also I think because it's real time and you have the streaming of the other student, doesn't matter where they are, it feels way more realistic than when you have an avatar in front of you or a video of someone, because you always are limited to the scenarios that you have played out in the experience beforehand. And now they can say whatever they want or react in any way possible. So you have the real interaction, which adds a lot. And I didn't experience that the different roles being in different on different locations took away from the experience. I have to say giving feedback at home, we haven't done that yet. So up until now, the students who gave feedback were always present at either Groningen or Amsterdam, but because of accessibility, we want to move on also to that last step for students being able to give feedback from home. So I don't have a lot of experience with that yet.
Thanks. Yeah, that's good to know. Okay, I think if no one has any more questions,
I actually have one more. One more question for for Ahmed. I was wondering if your and also for Vivian maybe, if you develop these apps, these experiences, are you thinking about sharing them with other institutions, or maybe selling them, or giving access via Steam, for example, or another platform or open source, sharing the code for other universities to use it? Or did you think about that at all?
So on my part, it is like, once it is developed, and also if it is like tested out by other institutions, so it's going to be available for research and training purposes, definitely. And that was like one of the main things that I discussed here with the institution, and it's going to be definitely available.
Interesting.
Yes, and in our case too, it is also our goal to share it with also social institutions in Belgium. We've got local governances. For example, we work in Leuven, and we want to collaborate with the city of Leuven to also use it in their social institutions. And it's a total package. It's not just the XR application. It's a whole didactical educational package around people with a mental disability.
Interesting. Thank you.
Now Vrije just needs to follow.
Yeah, exactly. We're also working on doing, like, if other institutions are interested, we try to collaborate with them as well, because it's in like the online environment, so they can join in. We try to also share it with other institutions.
Good. Okay, well, I think we did pretty well for time. I want to thank everybody for joining.